Now, listen, you guys, it seems like, well, the tea and beef between Nicki Minaj and advocate BBL is way far from being over. Nicki Minaj was out there talking about how it is such a better thing to focus on your own life and your marriage as opposed to having tea on people. Meanwhile, advocate BBL was out there doing an entire Paper Magazine interview about her back and forth with Nicki Minaj. Something I wish she could have done about her album, but oh well, she loves it when Nicki pays her any form of attention. We're going to talk about that. Nikki also went ahead to talk about, well, the system and how they manipulate people and public figures to make them feel like, well, they are alone and people do not believe them. And Jay-Z and the NFL, I was supposed to talk about it yesterday in my previous video. We're also going to be talking about, the new name that Nicki Minaj is out there giving Brother Billionaire. Hello, tea lovers, and welcome to the Tea Blog. I trust you guys are doing well, and I trust you are doing great. Personally, I am doing great. You guys, I am doing extremely amazing. And without further ado, let us dive straight into today's tea. So, first of all, let us talk about Advovo BBL. She went on an entire Paper Magazine interview to address the things that happened with Nicki Minaj. And some of the things that she was talking about are absolutely ridiculous. They really do show you where her IQ is and what her obsession is. She had a lot of things going on in that particular week, okay, and the week before, including releasing an album after 7 years of a dry spell for her fans. And well, they do want us to believe that she organically sold 200K, which, to be honest, if she wasn't being unnecessarily competitive with Nicki Minaj, it wouldn't be an issue. Like, that wouldn't have been a problem, here being able to sell 200K, because it's not a bad number. That I agree with. But of course, for somebody who was targeting to outdo Nicki Minaj, she wasn't exactly as happy with those numbers, okay? So, in my own opinion, she should have been celebrating. Her key highlight would have been her being able to put out an album after 7 years. You would at least assume that, well, for the past month, that was the key highlight of her life. But no, not when it comes to Advovo BBL. She gets only satisfaction when she's somehow involved with Nicki Minaj, when Nicki somehow pays her attention. Because guess what? That back and forth with Nicki Minaj was a key highlight of who she is in motherhood. Sounds ridiculous. I know it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but well, that's the IQ of the person that you guys like to hype. It went on, it was a lot of nonsense that she was talking about, basically trying to paint herself as this fierce lioness that was defending her cubs, which is absurd to me. Because listen, you started the child talk in such a way. Nikki gave you an example, you faked trying to not understand, or maybe you actually didn't comprehend what she was saying, and you started saying, "Why are you talking about my children? I dare you to talk about my children because I've got tea on your 5-year-old." And Nikki said, "Well, I dare you." That's how everything went down. And this whole I don't know, sympathy campaign that she's now going on is ridiculous to me. And the fact that people actually buy into this is even way more ridiculous, because did she put you in a voodoo calabash or something? What's going on? You really cannot make this up when it comes to this woman. People will let her get away with everything. And the fact that she had to do an entire interview to address this for damage control, for PR control, tells me that behind the scenes things are happening, okay? Because while how she carried herself when it comes to autistic children was never a smart move. She showed her hands. And to me, it sounds a lot like a cleanup campaign where she's trying to clean up or salvage any form of reputation or good name that she might have been left with. Because guess what? Now you're enemies with Alexa Sky. Now you're enemies with Beyonce. Now you're enemies with a lot of other people that might have taken, offense with you speaking down on children that are on the spectrum. Like, what did you think you were doing? But anyway, let me know in the comment section, you guys, what you think about that. I've been seeing a lot of you requesting for me to talk about the whole Stephon Diggs and her situation, and I will talk about it in due time. I've been seeing all that, okay? And I do believe that as of now, she's going through a lot. Some of the problems Well, she brought them on herself because people tried to tell her otherwise, but well, she thought she was bigger than the program. Now, let's move on to the next thing that we're going to be talking about. Nicki Minaj, she is dropping some gems on Twitter. She was like, I'm not about to do an interview to address this. Hence why she refused to be on on TMZ to explain this entire situation. It's not worth an entire PR rollout, okay? And this is what she started saying. She said, and I was like, Nikki, can you please let this girl rest? Because clearly, yeah, a lot is going on. And I don't blame Stefan, honestly, because if I were him, and now because of you, your big mouth, JT is dragging me, Nicki Minaj is dragging me, just because you can't keep your mouth shut, just because you're dragging their men, and now I'm getting involved in that. Do you think he's used to that kind of attention? Absolutely not. But anyway, Nikki said, let this be a gem you cherish forever. Satisfying your husband is bigger than stalking someone else's marriage, okay? And then she said 32726, the new album. And then she said, having your husband is bigger than having tea. I honestly feel like the whole Nicki Minaj thing and Twitter thing gets to Advovo BBL too much. Unfortunately, how they try to paint Nicki Minaj to be is how Advocate BBO is actually like in real life. Because they make it seem like Nikki is this internet obsessed person who's always on the internet, caring about what people are saying, caring about what people are thinking, trying to figure out tea on people. But she hardly ever does that. The only time that she's interested in someone is if you're out there trying to play in her face, like Les Z. We'll talk about Les Z as well in this video. Nikki is just, oh my God, unserious. On the other hand, you have Advocate BBL who is keeping up with tabs on what Nicki Minaj does in private. The only time that Nicki was addressing Advovo BBL and a hoo-ha and her laying down with another married man is when it came out in the public. She never came out and said, I've got tea. Oh my God, you're lying down with this man. You're pregnant with this man. But it seems like with Advovo, instead of taking her vitamins and supplements as a caring woman, she's out there trying to find out what Nicki Minaj and her husband are doing in their camp. That is obsession. Anyway, back to Nicki Minaj. She said, um, I know Twitter isn't a real place because TikTok is literally like being on another effing planet. Like they're all over there having a good old time. Laugh my behind off, like not a care in this effing world. And then she said, Twitter is the family event you say you are not going to anymore, but you go to every year anyway. At least you can be your behind, whole self and get tea and or tell tea. TikTok is the job function you go to where you are being kind and everyone else is too. They don't know you are in effing psycho yet. That's how unserious she is. Whilst other people are out there popping veins, she's out there making think pieces about how TikTok is different from Twitter, and she's out there having fun, having a key about the fact that, well, on Twitter, people are out there spilling tea and selling tea. Definitely unserious, definitely clowning on the internet, not taking any of this personal. And I do believe this because if 2018 and 2019 was not able to get her down, what else do you think is going to get her down, really? Nothing. And then she went ahead and said anytime, oh my God, Cock Nation is in the news for something. They don't want you to know, a few things will happen. Will Smith will happen, number one. Two, a famous person is announced deceased. Three, their allies will begin to post or say nasty things about the Queen. And then four, Lace Z will pop up looking dumb. And now I'm like, we've moved on from Brother Billionaire. Now we're calling him Lace Z. Just so unserious. Anyway, that being said, I'm actually going to try and look into it to see if this Will Smith thing is actually legit. I'm gonna try and see how that is working because you guys do know that also Lace Z or Brother Billionaire is allegedly in some soup with NFL executives because of the Bad Bunny situation and the Taylor Swift situation. We'll also discuss about that in this video. And then the allies beginning to post or say nasty things about the Queen. Obviously, this we've seen happening in real time. Key example, Today, when out of nowhere they started alleging that Nikki is about to lose her home because of a 500K debt, you cannot make this stuff up. Like literally, you cannot make this stuff up. And when it comes to that entire situation, it's very stupid, and people who are entertaining it as if it's a fact. I don't know what to say. Like I really don't know how to argue with somebody like that. But anyway, let's move on to the most important part of what she had to say. She was breaking down what a systematic breakdown is like. And then she shared, and it reads: the core idea, the tactic is about breaking a person down systematically, not in one blow, but through a long orchestrated campaign that chips away at their mental, emotional, social, and spiritual stability. It's like psychological warfare mixed with social engineering. Okay? And I want you guys to pay attention and see if indeed this was not happening since 2018, 2019, even way before 2018. And this is exactly why a lot of people will be out there following bots and forming opinions whilst they don't even have any truths based on headlines. Anyway, she said key steps in the tactic. Number one, isolation and alienation. They slowly turn family, friends, and co workers against the target through rumors, lies, and subtle manipulation. The goal is to make the person feel like nobody believes them and they are alone against the world. Now, let's take this and apply it to Nicki Minaj, okay? Now, isolation and alienation, turning family, friends. I mean, we saw them trying it with Ming in real time, sadly trying to set her up against her sister, baiting her to say something negative about Nicki Minaj. Because when it comes to actual Nicki Minaj's relatives, like her mom and stuff like that, it seems like they've got a very strong bond. So, what next thing did they do? Give Ming the spotlight and bait her into saying something weird about Nicki Minaj so people can run around bashing Nicki and Nicki can start feeling some sort of way. Friends, well, where do I even start with this? I mean, we saw how Drake was behaving when Advovo BBL came out. This is why sometimes I don't feel bad for that, Judas Degrassi. He's such a betrayer. And we saw him doing that with Advovo BBL. He knew exactly what was going on. He's an insider when it comes to the industry. So trust me, he knew all the politics and the dirty games that were happening there. But I guess during that time, he was still trying to prove to Lucian that we can go with anything that you guys say, so that you can push my music as well, and so that you can become my baby daddy. So the loyalty was out of the window. Speaking about friends, I mean, there are a lot of people that used to be cool with Nicki Minaj, and for no apparent reason, they would just wake up, turn on her. And when you try to get down to the crux of the issues or the reasons between the fallout with Nicki Minaj, you would almost be like, to me, it sounds like you were just looking for an opportunity to betray this person. But anyway, co-workers, oh my God, I'm not even gonna start with this. A lot of women in the music industry have turned on Nicki Minaj for no apparent reason. Okay, no apparent reason. Just we don't like her. She has attitude. And almost all of them would have the same wording to whatever narrative they were pushing about Nicki Minaj. You could tell that this was premeditated, because there is no way all of you can have the same vocabulary, the same buzzwords. No, it's not. It wasn't a coincidence, okay? And then rumors, lies, and subtle manipulation. I mean, the rumors and the lies, we all have seen them, even evident by the fact that even people now, up to now, still want to say that her husband is a PDF, despite despite him being 15 when the so-called incident happened. That in itself, I'm just like, at this point, you can't make this ish up. You really cannot. Anyway, that being said, subtle manipulation, of course, subtle manipulation has been there. The girlies are told you're bigger than the program, you're better than Nicki Minaj, and then it gasses up their heads, and then the next thing, they are out there snacking Nicki like Ice Spice did. Now, let's move on to the next point that she brought about. She brought about the pressures and the triggers. It says they engineer stress by setting up situations where the person is constantly frustrated, doubted, or attacked. Substances, stuff like that, may be covertly introduced to push them into acting out of character. Okay. Now, In her recent post about embezzlement and all of this tea and stuff like that, doctors were involved. Now you guys know how much doctors or anybody in the medical field is taught about privacy. Now if a doctor is now betraying a patient's privacy, if a doctor is going to the lengths of betraying a patient's privacy or embezzling funds from them, that should tell you that, well, there's a key, huge motivating factor, because what are you talking about? So now, if a doctor is capable of doing that, what is to say that that doctor will not introduce certain things to that patient to cause things in their lives? How many stories have we heard about dirty doctors that mess around with medication for patients for a check? And um, she also pointed out the frustration, the attacks, the guys. This woman, although it's not discussed a lot, somebody literally pew-pewed her dressing room. You guys, pew-pewed her dressing room. Are we gonna start talking about the swatting incidents? Of course not, because people don't want to bring that to light. Imagine if you were going through a series of events like this. Are we gonna talk about Amsterdam and the tour? Deb Anthony being offered money to turn on her. These things happened, but guess what? The power to women, people in the industry don't care. Because it's never about women empowerment. It's about going against whoever feels like, they are intimidating. That's why sometimes I don't take this all power to women movement, seriously. She said surveillance and staging. They place cameras, recorders, or staged witnesses to capture the person at their lowest moments. These recordings are later weaponized to prove the person is unstable or dangerous. Hence, maybe that person had a tracker on her. Like, why would you be out there putting a tracker on your client? For what? Public shaming or reputation sabotage. Gossip, whisper campaigns, or selective video evidence are shared to damage the person's credibility. The image projected is, see, they are crazy, unstable, addicted, or dangerous. And this has all happened actually. When you look at the recent interaction between Advovo BBO and Nicki Minaj, it was Nicki Minaj's tweets only that were trending on the internet. People hardly would repost the crazy things that Advovo BBL was saying about autistic children. No, people would just post the part where Nikki was now provoked and was like, what do you mean you've got tea on my 5-year-old and you're daring me to not say anything? And I feel like the reason why Nikki was coming at her like that after that is, you're not going to sun me. You're not going to let these people believe that you've got some damaging tea that has not been spilled on the internet at all. Meanwhile, the damaging tea is making mockery of an autistic child. That's the tea that you have. You thought you could blackmail Nicki Minaj by that. You thought even if Papa Bear was autistic, do you really think that Nicki would be ashamed that her child is on the spectrum? Like, this is the part that I don't get it. Like, what did you think Nikki was gonna do even if Papa Bear, let's say, was like that? So you thought you were gonna continue to ruin and run narratives and play on Nicki Minaj top just because the son is autistic, and you're using that as a blackmail weapon? Like, I'm gonna tell the world that your son is autistic. I'm gonna tell the. Do you guys realize how ridiculous that sounds? Wow. And the other thing is institutional labeling. Once the reputation is weakened, they escalate reporting the target to authorities, getting them flagged as unstable or even placed on watch list. This creates an official record that justifies further targeting and isolates them even more. I already spoke about the swatting. The effect: the victim begins doubting themselves, reacting defensively, or breaking under the pressure. From the outside, it looks like the person is losing it, but in reality, it is a manufactured breakdown designed to strip away their power, credibility, and support systems. I mean, I don't even need to spell this out. We saw this happening. Literally, there are a lot of people who have lost it several times. For example, Advovo Bibio, she has lost it countless times. But have you seen narratives ever being peddled that, well, she's losing it? No. That phone call to Ice Spice, imagine it. It did be Nicki Minaj. up to now, TMZ would have still been running headlines about that entire incident. But when it comes to Advovo BBL, what's happening? They are scrapping the internet off that audio because they don't want to push the narrative that, well, she is losing it, when it's not even a narrative. She's clearly losing it. And for the fact that people don't even see these tactics, I'm like, are you guys just blind, or are you guys just attracted to evil? Like, how do you explain that audio of Advovo BBO disappearing from the internet? How? That still sounds fair to you? At this point, I feel like her voodoo probably works on people who also are dark-hearted, because you can't tell me that no. I think it works on people that also have just dark hearts, so it sticks easily to the point where you don't see any wrong that this woman does. Anyway, and then the conclusion is why it works. It's powerful because it uses the victim's natural human reactions against them. It turns allies into enemies. It makes the target appear like the problem, while true manipulators remain hidden. And that is the story, ladies and gentlemen, of Nicki Minaj versus the music industry. We have the likes of the behind the scenes puppeteers like Brother Billionaire, Pacific, Advovo BBL, you know, Deseret, and all of these people behind the scenes pulling the strings, and you know, just turning around and painting another person evil when they are actually the ones that are evil behind the scenes. Let me know in the comment section, you guys, what you think about this breakdown. Now, moving on to the next thing that we're going to be talking about, tying back to the Nicki Minaj tweet where, you know, she said that anytime Coke Nation is in the news for something, they do not want you to know. A few things will happen. You guys, it seems like the NFL execs are not really happy with Brother Billionaire, or the title swindler, because allegedly he made it seem like he had an actual official discussion with Taylor's team about Taylor performing at the Super Bowl, only for it to come out later that in fact there was never any serious conversation or any serious offer to Taylor Swift when it comes to that. And you know, he always had Bad Bunny in mind, and it seems like those people are not happy with him. And it's interesting to see how that is going to play out. Some people do feel like, well, he may get stripped of his power to make these decisions. Okay, let me know in the comment section, you guys. Now, moving on to the next thing that we're going to be talking about. Okay, that's all. There's nothing else to talk about. The video is becoming too long. That being said, thank you very much, you guys, for watching, and thank you very much for making it this far. Do not forget to subscribe, and let me know what you think about this breakdown and this conversation that we've had on this, you know, in this video. Until my next one, see you.